Welcome to another special edition of Around the Block, crypto style. Today I have special guest Phillip Artis and Jasmin Wallace rejoining me today, and special guest Roberto Caldana joining me from all the way from Porto Alegre. Welcome, Roberto.
Thank you, everybody. So it's very nice to be here. I hope my English is like on the expectations to the life, but here we go. Let's go.
That's great, Roberto. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about yourself to the general public here. We all know that you're a star in Brazil, but now it's your turn to shine internationally.
I start in Brazil. You are very polite with me, Marwan. Thank you. But hello, everyone. My name is Roberto Caldana, and I'm part of the content team at Nelogica. I'm graduated at business and marketing, and I also have a master's in financial markets. And also, I have more than 5 years of trading experience into the Brazilian markets, and I'm specialist of tape reading analysis and trading strategies for tape reading. So, more a little bit like this.
That's a solid educational background, solid experience in the B3 and the financial markets here. So really glad to have you, Roberto, today.
Thank you,
And
Mara.
so, how's everyone doing since my pleasure, since we've last met? There's been a lot of things going on in the crypto market. We saw Luna become delisted. We saw a bit of things that were going on Friday, which kind of, threw everyone off completely. So let's start with talking about what happened to Luna. Well, first, maybe you guys can give me a bit of a background on what is Luna. If everyone knows already, Luna is the native token of the Terra blockchain. Is that about accurate, Phillip?
Yes, it is. It's one of the native tokens of the Terra Luna blockchain, and its main mechanism really was to keep the UST stablecoin, which is Terra Luna's stablecoin, at its $1 US dollar peg. There is a mechanism in the background. It's considered a Algo stablecoin, and I think it's important to kind of educate some of our viewers on the differences between some of the stable coins right now, because UST and their stable coin is not the same as the other ones that are out there. One of the largest ones, for example, USDC, is backed 1-to-1 by the US dollar, or allegedly 1-to-1. Then there's USDT, which is backed by a basket of assets, including commercial paper, and most recently, more US treasuries. And then UST was actually not backed by anything. Now, people are wondering, so how did it have its value? It's kind of like the dollar in that sense. It had value because people gave it value. And when Terra Luna established its ecosystem, people decided, okay, this is pegged to the dollar, and they had enough Luna backing it to be able to help it stay at that peg. So when it went under $1, it actually incentivized people, if I'm correct, and you could correct me on this, Marwan, to redeem that UST, the stable coin, for $1 worth of Terra Luna. And in doing so, that would burn the UST stablecoin, which would decrease the supply and thus return the UST back to the peg. And it worked the same way. When it went above $1, it incentivized people to redeem it for Luna. I'm sorry, I'm probably getting myself confused. But anyway, there was a mechanism that kind of helped it arbitrage back to maintain this $1 peg. So Luna is the main coin that really helped maintain this mechanism. And essentially what happened was the system broke, and I'll let Marwan kind of take it from there.
No, so that was a really good description there that you gave us, Phillip. So you're absolutely right. So it was intended to be pegged to US dollars, but unlike other stable coins, right, that are backed by fiat currencies, right, it was actually backed by no collateral whatsoever, right? And you mentioned it was an algo stablecoin. And ladies and gentlemen, algo refers to algorithm, right? So it's a mathematical equation that no one actually knows except them, right? And they basically used some type of arbitrage to stabilize the valuation. But since there was no collateral backing it up, what was it really based on, right? And so they basically said that you can actually earn Luna two ways, right? So one way is by purchasing it off an exchange, right? So if you went on Binance or if you went on Coinbase, for example, you can actually purchase it there. But another way is you can actually burn it. So burning it by exchanging one Luna for UST, and vice versa. So you can go from UST to Luna, right? But how do you do this with no collateral? So this was the big question. And I think another big question was in regards to how did the market capitalization of this stable coin, which had no collateral, increase over time if basically you were actually burning through Luna or burning through UST. So essentially, the math really wasn't adding up, and some people started to ask questions. Before it actually crashed, a lot of people on YouTube were actually pondering, like, so what's really going on? Is this based on anything? Is this a fraudulent Ponzi scheme? And we can't say today whether it is or not, but chances are that there's something fishy going on. I don't know if you were looking at social media earlier yourself, Phillip, but I saw that Kwon himself is trying to find another way to bring Luna back to light, right? He wants to basically put Luna Classic. He wants to create that on the side, which was the old version that failed. And he wants to create a new version of Luna backed by another type of algorithm. But then we saw the Twitter of the CEO of Binance. Did you guys see what he said there?
That they held their Luna and their UST, or the kind of disapproval of how Terra Luna was ran? Because I know CZ's been dropping a lot of bombs the last few days.
Yes, that's actually it. So he had about 15.4 million Luna, which was given to him for an investment of about 3 million USD into the actual ICO initially. So the value of it today, based on the math, is about 2,400 US dollars. But really, since it's been delisted, it's worth nothing, right? It's completely defunct.
Yeah, at one point it was $1.6 billion. So that 3 million was $1.6 billion, and is now just 2.4K. Like it's.
And for how long Luna was on the market? Like this was very recent. It was very really fast.
Yeah. I know that it's really just been in the top 10 since last December, I want to say. I know there was a lot of, I think there was a big learning curve of it. I'm looking at the total value locked, which is a metric that shows how much money is in a protocol. And Anchor was actually the number one protocol on Terra Luna, and at the start of the year, there was only, actually no, there was a lot. there was 8 billion, but I mean at its peak there was over 20 billion locked in this one thing. So from the beginning of February there was 8 billion until the beginning of May, 20 billion. So 12 billion. I'm not a math guy, but that's a lot of money going into one protocol. And that's really what attracted a lot of people to Terra Luna. The Anchor protocol, high level, was basically marketed. When you go to the homepage, it says a better savings protocol. And it was basically a high yield savings account that said, you give us your US Terra, as a depositor so people could borrow against it. And we give you a steady 20% yield on it annually. So a lot of people actually thought that this was relatively safe in the world of crypto. I know safe is, is relative, but for a 20% gain, they thought, hey, it's a stable coin. Like stable coins, yeah, they go down a bit, but they always usually come back up. So this thing is really going up, and why should I sit on this fiat that's, I know the US dollar is just experiencing a lot of issues right now in terms of its purchasing power, along with other countries, I can only imagine. So people are thinking, why am I sitting on this thing that's losing me money? Why shouldn't I at least stash it somewhere, somewhere that looks somewhat safe? It's not Bitcoin that's going up and down. It's not Ethereum that's going up and down. It's a stable coin. And that's what I think is so unfortunate about it, that it's not the typical degens and the people that are looking for like triple digit yields and everything. You see a lot of these products nowadays. Well, I've seen a bunch of products that have like 5% yield. So like, I don't know. I didn't think 20% in crypto world was too far out of the question. I just assumed that it was heavily subsidized. I know they have like some of the biggest backers in their corner. I mean, Binance obviously was one. But yeah, no, it seemed like a safe way, and I think that's what's such a shame. A lot of people who thought this was a safe way to get a decent return on their stable coin kind of not got suckered in, but like believed in something they just didn't understand.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, Philip. They basically created this sort of, aside from the arbitrage, a sort of incentive mechanism for them to begin to raise capital. And I think they were able to do this using people's money with this supposed savings account where they can deposit and then, get a certain yield out of it over time. But again, the way it was set up with the algorithm, it doesn't seem like it made any sense at all. And if you looked at some of the rants that CZ made on social media recently, you really start to believe that it didn't really add up. And he only invested into it thinking that he was going to use it maybe as like a side project in the future, but in the end it really backfired, that initial investment in 2018. And by the way, CZ is actually, he's the founder and CEO of Binance. He's also Chinese Canadian. There you go. So proud to have another Canadian on the board.
Yeah.
In the crypto market.
Yeah, I mean, and he was only in it, like you said, not that much. I mean, one just came to mind is Galaxy Digital. I don't know if you saw that famous crypto Twitter picture that's making the rounds, but he got a Terra Luna tattoo and declared himself a lunatic, I want to say earlier this year or something. So like, and they were in for, I believe, 300 million. I'm not sure which round, but they had a lot in there, and there were a lot of quote unquote smart money that really took a bath in here. Arca, I know, wrote a letter to his investors, Van Eck. You see all these TradFi, all the people who think they know everything, really believed in this thing. Not just like your typical crypto degens, like really big traditional finance institutions, had entire funds dedicated to it that they've had to scrub from their page now. So it's crazy. And I know in Korea they were building because Terraform Lab, well, Do Kwon, I know, is Korean, and Terraform Labs, I believe, is based in Korea, if I'm not mistaken. But they were building like a payment system around it, kind of like how what is it in China that like you pay for everything with? I don't know.
WeChat?
Yeah, yep, exactly. Yeah, that kind of Wii thing where you just pay everything like that. So I know, a lot of people, besides people that lost money, a lot of like projects and like funds and like that, like there's just so much ripple effects throughout this thing because Terra really snaked its way into like every corner of DeFi. Even Bitcoin, you know, it made its way into. So it was in like every corner of the system, and everyone got affected by it. You know, fortunately, it was somewhat contained, but it's really a shame. And like, yeah, I mean, just thinking about the human element of it, people just losing everything, and that's why it's so important to do your research on everything. Don't go off of someone's, you know, advice. Like, ask questions, find out how this thing works, where that yield's coming from, most importantly, and then don't invest more than you can lose. It's a very volatile market. It can go to zero just as fast as it can go to 100%. So, you know, just really stay safe in here. This is a huge reminder, and an unfortunate one, but it's, you know, really going to have people think twice about where they put their money now.
And it's really sad because this like euphoria movement, you know, like can put a lot of people in a lot of trouble. Like you said, a lot of people lost a lot of money. Maybe people that didn't even knew what they are doing. So, but this is cyclical. So I think every 3 to 4 years we see something like this happening in every kind of sector, you know, like industry. So it just keeps going on, you know, things like 400 years ago, so until now, and the same thing.
It was funny. Speaking of cyclical, when Marwan mentioned that they decided to go in a different way and how Kwon's doing this, it reminded me of Ethereum's the DAO moment. Not a lot of people know this, but Ethereum and Ethereum Classic actually are forks. Ethereum Classic is actually the original chain, and the DAO, as it's known, there was a hack basically that changed the status of the chain. So they voted to create a new chain to act like that hack never happened, and a part of the community decided that that went against, you know, the immutability of the blockchain, so they stuck with it. So for just a little history lesson, Ethereum Classic is actually the original Ethereum chain with the DAO hack, and Ethereum is the new chain that actually branched off after that. So I'm wondering if this actually might be a DAO moment for Terra UST. You know, I mean, price action doesn't necessarily reflect how things are going. I mean, obviously it's a mess right now, but there is an entire infrastructure, like I said, that was being built around Terra Luna, Terra Money, and there's an immense amount of backing. And I could see them possibly, if there is a way out, possibly pouring more in to cover themselves, or I don't know. It could be possible. You know, I'm sure a lot of people, when Ethereum first got away from Ethereum Classic, were like, this isn't gonna work. Like, I don't know if you know Kobe. He went by Crypto Cobain on crypto Twitter, but he was like, the original camp was like, oh, like Ethereum Classic, blah 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 blah, and then he realized like a lot of people don't even care that it violated the rules, and as long as it, you know, works fine, then that's all that matters, you know.
Yeah. It looks like Do Kwon's going to be, you know, doing his best to bring back his reputation. He's currently being likened to Elizabeth Holmes. I don't know if you guys know about her in Brazil, but she did the whole Theranos deception. So people are comparing him to her, which is kind of crazy. But, you know, he promises that he will use that Bitcoin that he has in the event of the dramatic fall. So let's see what happens. It looks like he's not giving up, and, you know, he's trying to push those lunatics to really stay grounded and to wait, just trust, you know, blindly. Let's see what happens with that.
Yeah,
definitely interesting. Definitely interesting points here. I just wanted to mention a few things. One, Do Kwon, he is actually South Korean, but Terraform Labs is actually based in Singapore.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That's the yeah.
Their license was never granted, apparently, from the Singapore Monetary Authority. Like, apparently they never actually got full grant to continue this project. So I don't know how they got this far without an actual license to operate, legally speaking. So it's interesting to see how this will actually play out with the investigation and everything. So I wanted to highlight two things. One was, like you guys mentioned, Ethereum Classic to the Ethereum that we see today. So this is what he quoted earlier today on social media. So he said the Terra chain is currently exists, should be forked into a new chain without algorithmic stable coins called Terra token Luna, what we know today, right? And the old chain be called Terra Classic, LUNC, and both chains will coexist. So he's actually trying to play off in the same direction that Ethereum did in the past. And you also mentioned, Philip, about the fact that we have different cryptocurrencies which have been affected, right? We had the blockchain network for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and various others, including Cardano, Solana, that has been impacted by Luna. And one thing I wanted to mention is the term interoperability. There it is. Interoperability. It's a big word. So let's first talk about this term. Okay. So in crypto terms, this means the compatibility, right, of a crypto's blockchain network and its ability to be integrated within other different blockchain networks. Okay. So because of this interoperability, it has more or less polluted some other networks. And I wish I could say that it has done so with bad debt, right? But in this case, has done so with actually like fake debt, right? Fake money in the cloud with no monetary value whatsoever. I could be wrong, but I'm going to stand by my word for now. We saw other crypto stable coins such as Tether, right, around the same time, like you mentioned, Philip, lose its peg on the same day that Luna's network crashed as well. So a few things I want to highlight there. Roberto, maybe we can actually pull up the charts and take a look to see what happened play by play here on the Vector platform.
Okay. You want me to share my screen or yours?
Yeah, please. You can go ahead and share your screen. That would be
okay. Just a second. You can.
Did we go over? Sorry, Marwan. Did we go over the Luna Foundation Guard and their role and all this yet?
No. Feel free to talk about it.
Should do that? Okay, so I think one important thing, just how Marwan talked about interoperability. Terra and its assets were used on the Ethereum chain, on Avalanche in particular. They had actually just launched the Anchor protocol on Avalanche, so they had a whole new source to keep it running. So that's why that took such a major hit. But let me bring up my chart here. In March, I believe, or in April. So let's just say Q1 of this year. Terraform Labs decided to establish this organization called Luna Foundation Guard with the goal of acquiring Bitcoin to help the backing of the UST stablecoin. Up until that point, Luna was the only asset that was able to have any effect on the price through the arbitrage mechanism. But what Luna wanted to do was take a less volatile asset, since Bitcoin tends to be less volatile than Luna, and have that as backing. So people are like, hey, okay, there's a slightly more stable asset backing this stable coin, thus giving people more faith in it. And I think that's one part that really helped drive the craze for it. Because if you look at when it started making these buys, I'm trying to see exactly when it was formed. But Bitcoin started going into a mini rally. There was some kind of euphoria associated with that. Kind of these systems are these different protocols operating with each other. And Kwon talked about, giving Bitcoin kind of DeFi relevance, essentially. But yeah, February 24th, the Luna Foundation Guard raised $1 billion through the sale of Luna tokens. The nonprofit was set up in January to support the Terra blockchain, and the funds will be used to establish a Bitcoin-denominated Forex reserve for UST, Terra's biggest stablecoin. So the goal of that was to ensure the long-term stability of UST. As they explained, the reserve assets can be utilized in instances where protracted market sell-off deters buyers from restoring the UST peg's parity. And remember that, because that comes into play later. Marwan, do you want me to get into that now, or do you want to talk about the sell-off and then I'll talk about LFG? Over the time, LFG accumulated, I think Marwan said, $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. And essentially, all of that Bitcoin was sold, trying to maintain this peg. So $1.5 billion of sell pressure on top of Bitcoin while all this was happening. On top of the avalanche, they actually bought some avalanche as well. I want to say, I think 300 million. So they were just dumping everything they could to try and maintain this peg. On top of, it affecting Ethereum through the staking and various others. I know Atom or the Cosmos network, but the big names like Ethereum, Bitcoin, it immediately had an effect on. Yeah, you can see a lot of it line up with when everything started going downhill for Terra, Luna, and UST.
Absolutely. And so there's several big factors that have really impacted what's been happening. There's another thing that you were mentioning earlier, I think, that we saw in the news, and I think it had to do. Just double check here. That's about it. I think it was the selling off itself that had a huge effect. But it's a massive loss in the market. This was, look at that, one day, and it dropped more than 99% in value.
Yeah.
One day when the network crashed. And what was the excuse that they used that day? What was the reasoning behind it?
There's a lot of theories going around. I'm really I can't wait to see the movie on this because it's going to be something epic. But there was an unlimited seller of US Terra across Binance and I think other exchanges as well. And what originally started the drop, and it's funny because you can see this on chain, and this is why kind of knowing how decentralized exchanges work is really important, because a lot of Terra's use was on chain. It wasn't through these exchanges. The way people swapped it was on chain. And the largest decentralized exchange for stablecoins, so think of it as like a Binance or Coinbase, but for stablecoins. So it has deep pools of liquidity for like USDT, Tether, USDC, DAI, and UST, Terra Luna stablecoin. And what Terra Luna did was they were preparing to basically make a more efficient pool for people to trade in. So they had to remove liquidity from their main pool. At that same time, this alleged attacker drained $350 million from the pool. So what happens, the way these things work is they have a pool of money, and everyone pools their money together and it swaps these tokens out. So they basically took all of the UST out of that pool. So people all of a sudden realize, hey, wait a second, I can't swap my tokens. And that's what started a bank run in other areas. And that's when it really started losing its peg. And that's when Terraform Labs and Luna Foundation guards started selling and loaning their Bitcoin and Avalanche and any other asset to try and restore the peg. And this just created a negative loop because people were trying to get out of Luna. And in order to try and raise the peg, they kept having to make more Luna and then sell that. So it was literally just this negative feedback loop as the price went down. The peg destabilized, they had to create more and then sell more, and it was just like, so the total supply of Luna had been between 300 and 500 million, depending on the burning at any given time. Over the course of 24 hours, it rose by 24 billion. So all of a sudden there were 25 billion Luna on the market. So you can imagine how much that diluted the price. And yeah, how many zeros is that before it reaches the first digit? 4. So it's deep. It's very deep in the hole right now. And I guess that's the only option is really to fork it, because it's yeah.
I mean,
some bigger brains know more than me.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of theories, the biggest one I've seen currently is that they're speculating, that BlackRock and Citadel could have had a role in being behind the attack on the peg, which then prompted Gemini to deny any speculation it had played, including Citadel also contacted Fortune. They denied the allegations and said Citadel was not involved in the situation and they do not trade stable coins, including Terra UST. So that's I don't know. Are they pulling a Lehman, Brothers move, or was really?
I think it's more of a George Soros. There's a power move. They came with size. And you have to have a lot. Like you have to have a lot of. That's why it seems like it was coordinated, because you have to have a lot of liquidity to be able to pull this off simultaneously and to understand how the mechanism works, to be able to do all these things at the same time. It's wild. But yeah, I mean, concerning their new fork, I actually got some details on some of the VC firms that are going to be in the new chain, such as Jump Crypto, Celsius, Jane Street committed already. Alameda Research, which is Sam Bankman-Fried, the owner of FTX, his firm hasn't committed yet. Looking for about $1 billion to $1.5 billion raise, 50% discount on Luna with a 1-year lock, and then monthly linear vest over 1 year. So they have about 700 million in commitments for their new chain. So apparently there's still some belief in it.
Speaking of Sam Bankman-Fried, he kind of took a really big shot at Bitcoin today. Did you guys see that?
Enlighten me. What did he say? He
said he believes that Bitcoin, the world's largest cryptocurrency, has no future as a payments network. He did this with an interview on the Financial Times today. So he really took a shot at them.
What do you think about that? Do you agree or disagree?
I think anything is possible right now. I don't think that's exactly the case. I think that, Bitcoin kind of, it's the mother, and to say that it has no future is, at least in payments, is kind of, I think it's a little too early to say that. I know that it doesn't look amazing right now, but I don't think it's the right time to be putting those death wishes on Bitcoin.
Yeah, it might be a bit too early to say things like that, because of the fact that a few countries have recently adopted Bitcoin as their own national currencies. So cryptocurrency, whether people like it or not, it's being embedded into the financial system. It is its own financial system, if you think about it. The blockchain networks have continuously shown the sort of expansion over time We're seeing a lot more real world use for cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin, like you said, the mother of all cryptos, which started it all, right? So to undermine Bitcoin that easily, I think it's a bit harsh. But then again, who am I to say? Warren Buffett recently said something as well, right? He's probably one of the biggest people in the financial market to talk about anything financial, right? And for him to take a shot at cryptocurrency as well was a bit shocking. And I think Elon Musk he was laughing at that, right? I don't know if you guys remember that a few weeks back.
Yeah, you know what's funny? On CoinDesk, I think I saw the other day, Warren Buffett's niece or great niece or granddaughter, a relative, is actually an NFT artist and was like on there like showing off her NFT art, and like they were asking her, you know, like what she tell them at family dinner and stuff, blah blah blah, and like it was pretty funny. But about the SBF thing, I think so. Crypto like realizes that like, yeah, there are some people who are like financially savvy, let's say, and like kind of understand like kind of the psyops of the space. I think he wasn't very serious about that. I think he was more saying it to grab some attentions and possibly bring attention to like Solana Pay, and like, you know, he's a big Solana guy. He's behind like Serum and all that. So like I think it was more one of those things just to say to like get attention, and like, because there's no way that he can just ignore the progress that like Lightning Labs has had. And then like we covered on the last episode and on the shorts that NCR and all NCR POS terminals are now able to accept crypto. So that's 400,000 US retailers instantly. I don't know how many worldwide, but that, you know, instantly, that's exponential amount of exposure people can use. And, exponential amount of people who now like have some sort of interest in it, you know, who like might have just already had the system and didn't really want to get into crypto. They're like, hey, you know, I already have this, so why not? Like, I don't know how it works. Maybe they can put like some in money and some in crypto. Like, I'm sure it's not like they have options about how to get it, but like things like that, I think, you know, show that it's obviously aiming to be used as a payments network, and as Lightning Channel continues, or the Lightning Network continues to develop, it's just going to make it easier and easier to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely more efficient, more effective than a lot of financial instruments that have been its predecessors in the past that have been introduced in the traditional markets. And the fact that it has a lot of real world applications is extremely useful. It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. Roberto, can we pop up BTC on the charts just to see how it performed around the same time Luna took a dive?
Just a second, let me do something different. So.
Oh, nice. That's wonderful. We can now see like a comparative chart between the two, which is excellent. Oh, look at that.
Yeah. This was just a simulated operation, but don't mind this. Bye.
Nah, it looks great.
And there we go. Look at the peak of the financial volume here as of recent. Right, and the market aggressors towards selling around the same time Luna took a dive. And how is the market performing in general? If we can pull up the market monitor, we can see in general terms what the capitalization of the market is using a heat map.
Yeah, it's not looking good. So I think it's around 1.3 trillion.
Yeah. There you go. So the markets are bleeding today. The crypto markets are bleeding today.
Do you guys think we're going under $1 trillion? We're not too far off.
Oh.
We're not too far off, but I don't know how long this downtrend is going to last for. I personally don't think it's going to last that long. If we were to use any sort of indicators on the chart, we can actually, just looking at the moving average, You can see some resistance levels here,
We
some support
you
levels.
want me to put another moving average? Which one?
Yeah, maybe we could take a look to see the Bollinger Bands, for example, combined with maybe the RSI.
Sorry, my vector is in Portuguese. But we can understand
Oh yes.
here.
That's wild. Now, Phillip, do you remember what we discussed about Bollinger Bands and some signals that we should look out for?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you remember our discussion about Bollinger Bands in the past?
I do. I totally remember them, but if you'd like to remind Jasmin, since she wasn't on the talk,
yeah.
Be great
So
to
one thing that we should actually take a look at is whenever, so right on the left-hand side around the highlighted area of the box here, you can see that there is one candlestick that sort of, it burst out of the Bollinger Band, right? And then it started to climb back up, passing the moving average trend line, right? Continuing until it burst past the upper
This
band.
one? Oh, let me do something that will be easier. Yeah, this one. This little guy here. It's easier. The number of the candle, so this is easier to.
Perfect. Yeah. So we can see candle number 25, for example. So candle number 25 is when it burst below the lower band, right? And then we said that whenever it bursts below either the upper band or the lower band, it will give continuation into the opposite direction, which is true in this case. A few candlesticks later, around candlestick number 33, it went above the moving average. And usually when this happens, it will give continuation up until the upper band, and sometimes it will expand outside of the upper band, like we see in candlestick 43, between 41 and 43, right? And then moving back down in the opposite direction, because as we said, once it bursts through the extremities of any of the bands, it will move into the opposite direction. So it has done so, right? So we can see that it went below the moving average trend line, the middle band, right? And gave continuation once more. And it seems like from candlestick number, is it the number 1 again after 51?
Oh, yeah.
So from number 1 all the way to about 16, 17, it looks like we're entering into a sideways market. So we can actually see this by the financial volume reflected, which is about stable, right? People aren't really sure what their next move is on the market, right? So personally, I believe we're going to enter into a sideways market for some time, right?
And you can also put a moving average on the volume. So
let's do that. That's a good one.
Yeah. So let me change the color. This is the funny part. Yeah.
Perfect. So then, go ahead, Roberto.
No, yeah.
And it's basically, as you can see, moving above, right? The financial volume increasing above the average trend line there as well. And it's also bursting below. So candlestick number 19, bursting below the lower band once more, the extremities of the lower band. After a sideways market, chances are that it's going to move into the opposite direction once more. So to me, it looks like it's going to bounce back, but we'll just have to wait out and see how it's going to do in the near future.
Yeah.
Now,
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like a lot of it has to do with these macro headwinds we're dealing with, the FOMC meetings, like how much the Fed is actually going to raise rates. And then I know Bitcoin, at least, has been trading very closely correlated to the NASDAQ. And I think that just kind of represents the profile of people trading the asset now. They're treating it as a high growth tech stock, and, selling it as such, where you're seeing, the typical FANG stocks like Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix in particular. I think they're down like 70%. Facebook, I know, isn't doing well. Peloton is in the gutters. There's a lot of companies that used to be quote unquote safe bets that aren't in the tech high growth space anymore. And it seems like this is further out on the risk curve. So as the quantitative tightening starts to happen, these riskier assets are the first to get sold off. I'm hoping it's going to bounce back. I'm just worried or a bit concerned about what the macro picture is going to do to it. I've heard some estimates of it dropping as low as 20K, which was the last market pump high. Also, I think this recent candle is the 7th week in a row we've had a red candle, and I don't know if we've never had that happen before, or if it hasn't happened in like 5 years or something. But there's a lot of fear in the air. There's a lot of things going on that don't necessarily have to do with Bitcoin that are affecting it, like the LFG and the Luna fiasco, along with the macro headwinds. So like there's a lot of things that feel like they're going against it right now, unfortunately.
There are a lot of
from a like fundamental point of view, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big main factors in this case in recent news is definitely the interoperability of Luna in these deep pockets, in these deep wallets of the BTC blockchain, Ethereum blockchain, Solana, and so on. I was actually looking at the news report, the crypto report within Vector. There's some interesting highlights on there. So it talks about Germany going nationwide on crypto taxing. So they're introducing some new laws that are going to be implemented in the near future on how, basically a booklet on how to tax crypto, right? And it's a federal thing. It's not like a provincial or statewide thing. It's the whole country itself.
I heard the same thing with Portugal as well.
That's it. I was just about to say. What did you hear about Portugal exactly?
That they're considering capital gains taxes, because I think up until this point there's been zero, if I'm not mistaken. And it's funny, actually, one of my best friends growing up is from Portugal. Shout out Luis Lourenco. But yeah, he's not too happy about that.
Yeah, so he's deep into crypto as well.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I said, during the pandemic, I did a lot of crypto, and he is one of the few friends that I could actually talk to about it on like a level that doesn't seem like I was, scratching nails on the chalkboard to them. So, he's a very good friend of mine that knows a lot of the space, but isn't too happy with possibly having to deal with the taxes now.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And how's the U.S. Securities Commission dealing with crypto taxing these days? In my last crypto hour with Crypto Blood, he brought a lot of things into light in regards to that. But do you have any recent updates?
As far as taxing, no. Some of the reporting requirements, I think, are kind of hurting crypto, like the fact that, and I think this was the SEC, that companies that are crypto companies have to report their crypto holdings as losses, or report them. or they're only able to report them as losses on their quarterly earnings calls and stuff. So like, you know, companies like Coinbase who don't like actively trade, they're like a prime brokerage and then like a main broker, you know, for an exchange for retail. Like they just hold crypto for people. Like they have to report these losses, even though they're like actually doing better and better. And same thing with MicroStrategy and Tesla as well. Forget the term. I think impairments, I want to say. Yeah, I think it's there are things in place, or it feels like the SEC is really trying to rein control over crypto. And I'm glad the executive order asked for a multi-agency approach, because I believe agencies like the CFTC might be a bit more friendly and more open to allowing the innovation to grow, not having such stifling regulatory concerns. So I think that multi-agency approach might help out, but I think the SEC is doing everything in its power in the meantime to keep a Bitcoin ETF or spot ETF from coming to market. I heard that Grayscale actually is planning on suing possibly. Yeah, I believe what's his name? I can't recall the founder. I believe it's Sonnenschein or Sorensen. But he said, you know, not all cards are on the table, basically, if we don't get this Bitcoin spot ETF approved, because there was a futures ETF that was approved recently under a different SEC law, because they've been rejecting all the spot ETFs based on the an SEC law from the 1940s. But they recently approved a futures ETF under a 1933 Security Act. So I think that rubbed a lot of people who have been trying to get the spot Bitcoin the wrong way, that they decided to accept, you know, another futures ETF under this guidance, when they could have done the same thing with a spot ETF, or yes, a spot ETF. So yeah, it feels like there's a lot of pressure from the SEC, and I'm not sure if it's just a power grab, but it's stifling innovation, unfortunately, and hopefully it's the control over it is spread out a bit more.
Yeah, we'll have to see how Mr. Powell will shake things up in the Securities Commission. Hopefully, we'll have some good news relatively soon. Also wanted to touch base on Zuckerberg.
Powell. He's actually chairman of the Fed.
Federal Reserve, yeah.
Yeah, Federal Reserve, yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg says that Instagram will start to test out NFTs. And I didn't know who else would be better to talk about this by yourself, Jasmin.
I'm just saying, NFTs are making waves. I mean, even with everything going on currently, just, you know, in sales and, you know, in terms of some of the most expensive NFTs, we have the Merge that's had $91.8 million in sales, which is just crazy to think, you know, this is somebody's artwork. And, you know, we're ranging from the top 10 most expensive from the 91.8 million to Beeple's Crossroads at 6.6 million, which is still, you know, pretty outstanding, I would say. A lot of these artists haven't even revealed themselves. So to see Instagram pulling in NFTs, some other larger companies like Starbucks, they're thinking about doing like an NFT kind of like membership program. Where will NFTs really take us and lead us, allowing us to maybe partake more in the companies that we already know and love, kind of making us more of a community. So I'm really, really excited to see what's going to happen. We need to put our Crypto Cats NFT out there sometime soon, because I mean, we're falling behind.
Absolutely.
And I can definitely see the metaverse and NFTs intertwining, especially with Instagram and Facebook. It's going to intertwine, and I can totally see us attending virtual art galleries sometime in the future.
I think that's definitely a big possibility. Speaking about Meta specifically, they're actually working on 3D augmented reality NFTs that will be apparently compatible with people's stories. So you'll be able to post some type of like 3D hologram, probably using some type of VR in the future, as they're actually creating their own store as well, selling all types of metaverse gear to get people ready for it. But yeah, there are some fine arts that are involved in the NFT space these days. Christie's is one of the big names in the NFT space that are starting to invest heavily into it. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it's going to play out in the future. But very exciting stuff. So I wanted to thank you all for participating today. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, Phillip. Thank you, Jasmin. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, activate notifications, and we'll see you guys soon. We'll see you on the other side. Have a great night, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.